Welcome back to another 15 Minutes of Fame. My name is Goldie. I am joined here today by Lee Putnam of Rockfan Entertainment and also Criss from Shure Microphones. And Criss is the Senior Market Development Manager and also Consulting Liaison for Shure Microphones. And the reason why we have such professionals on the show today is our topic today is going to tackle the idea of what is 5G. Okay, we're going to clear the air. We're not going to try and solve your conspiracy theories or your thoughts or ideas about what you think 5G is. We are merely going to state the facts. From there, if you're still concerned about what's going on this planet with radio waves, I implore you to study more and find out more about what it's all about. But right now, we have some of the top professionals in the house to speak about what 5G is. We're going to talk about the three things that 5G means to you today. What is 5G, number one? Number two, how has 5G been used, or G in general, been used in the past 100 years? And then lastly, is 5G or any of these technologies a harm to humans on this planet? So we will discuss. So let's get underway. Criss, take it away. Who are you? Give me a little history about yourself. I think you are going to lead this conversation today.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. So, yep, I'm part of Shure Market Development team. And really kind of what we focus on is making sure that our products are first of all, operating the way they're supposed to in the field. I'm excited to kind of crack the egg here on the 5G conversation. What does 5G really mean? And I think when we're talking about telecommunications, 5G really literally means fifth generation.
Simply a word.
Technology standard. Yeah. So this is a next generation of how we're going to get our next cat videos or whatever it is we want to watch, because there's this high demand for data. We're consuming so much data, and of course the market wants to give it to us. So we got to get faster at it. So this 5th gen technology is supposed to get us closer to that and allow us to download more videos, whatever it is we're watching. And the interesting part is that this happens over our existing cell network.
Okay.
They're not really necessarily building out any new cell networks. I mean, we did recently go through an auction where T-Mobile mainly was the main winner that bought some of our 600 megahertz chunk of spectrum. We're talking about an RF spectrum, so around in the 600 megahertz area. Normally, cell operators are operating their systems in 1.2 and higher ranges. As a side note, I saw something come across where 6 gig might start becoming of interest here.
Okay. So Criss, and not to interrupt, but only because we have 15 minutes and I do want to get as much information into our viewers as possible. A lot of things you said right there might start popping up questions, red flags, ideas, concerns for our viewers. So we know that 5G is merely just a word. It's like calling your daughter Julie, okay? 5th generation. But what does it stand for, right? You were just speaking to it. It's a moment on a scale, you could say. So let's talk about this scale, because 5G is just merely a name within this scale. This scale is the RF waveform scale, kilohertz to gigahertz scale, right?
Yeah.
And
maybe I should show you real quick what that looks like.
Why don't we go ahead, show us what this means. I think ultimately we need to understand this scale. Where do radio frequencies come from?
Well, that's kind of like saying, where does air come from?
Okay.
It's an innate thing here, right?
Yeah, it is.
The cool thing is a radio wave, maybe this will better describe it. A radio wave itself is it's electromagnetic radiation. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. And it travels at roughly the speed of light. It certainly travels in outer space much better than it does here on the planet Earth, because it gets attenuated over distance. And there's two components of this, an electrical wave and a magnetic wave. So where do these things land? What else do we know of that is a radio wave? Well, there are things like radio waves, microwaves. These are all part of the electromagnetic spectrum, including visible light. So this chunk here is part of the electromagnetic wave form. It's up higher, and this is the visible part where we see colors. Mm-hmm. And then it goes on up, X-rays, gamma rays, et cetera, et cetera. Microwaves, the section that we're kind of talking about here for deploying some of these cell networks on 2.4 gigahertz range-ish, which is a relatively small chunk of spectrum. If I jump back up here, 300 kilohertz is a very long wavelength. Up to 500 gigahertz is a very short wavelength. The difference between the two is that the longer the wavelength, typically the larger the antenna, and I can cover more distance, but I can't get much data on that wave. The smaller the antenna, the smaller the wavelength, I can get smaller antennas and I get more data packed in. The problem is it gets attenuated very quickly. So beachfront property really is this chunk here, right in this area here where I'm showing.
Okay, when you say beachfront property, that is a sort of a nickname to the hardcore what?
That historically has been where television channels operate, certainly wireless mics. Some of the new cell towers are operating here for mobile broadband stuff. This is 600 megahertz, 700 megahertz, 800 megahertz. This is where it starts to get pretty, the wave propagation is good. So we don't have to have as many cell towers in as many places. We can have fewer cell towers. They penetrate the buildings a little bit better. You know, the higher in spectrum we go, which there are chunks up here for mobile broadband, the problem is, again, they get attenuated quicker. So that's why you start seeing more and more cell towers along the side of the road everywhere you go. They have to have more distribution to get everywhere.
Okay. So this is going to cloud information for some, and I want to try and clear that up. Somebody's mind might go, well, if we have more towers, this could mean more problems on the planet, right? Like we should plant more trees, not more cell phone towers, things like that. How have we used radio frequencies in the past 100 years?
From the early radios that were being built, whether it was for wartime or just general public announcement, some of that actually even started, I think, in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Certainly the company I worked for, Mr. Shure, started this business in the US, distributing radio parts in the early 1900s.
Just to maybe bring a real world example to the idea, although technology a bit different, radio frequencies haven't changed on this planet at all.
No, these things are governed by the laws of physics, and the last time I checked, we still haven't broke them.
Okay. So, and that'll bring us to our third question here in a minute, but ultimately understanding that if radio frequency was a horse, human beings have just figured out how to put reins on it. Would that be a good analogy?
Well, that's a very interesting analogy. You're exactly right, because to point this out, the actual waveform, the actual radio wave has always existed. The cool thing about what you just said is we have learned how to put things on that radio wave and use it as a carrier to get information from one point to another. So yeah, the old days, it was an analog signal of some kind, whether it was my voice or the television. We all might remember we went through the DTV transition where analog TV stations shut down and they went digital. And there's many, hopefully everyone's recognized the benefits of that. You get a much higher quality television signal capable from the same over-the-air chunk of spectrum.
Okay. So with that being said, if anyone had a concern about radio frequencies, they would have to not only leave this planet, but maybe leave the universe and leave all physics behind.
Well, the problem is you can't get away from them. Yeah,
That's right.
Can't get away from it.
That's right. So we've been living in radio waves since the womb.
Stars, galaxies create spurious RF stuff that excites scientists, and they try to analyze it and figure out more about it.
So the question I bring to you, we know what fifth generation is. It's a spectrum on the RF. Some people are saying, oh, it's a very dangerous thing to do. Well, you've been walking and living in 5G your entire life. It's just another spectrum in that beachfront property that you've been speaking about. So moving forward, and Lee and I have had this discussion multiple times, when does it become dangerous, or is it? So we have cell phones, we have Motorola radios on event sites, right? With the people using the two-way radios. We have wireless microphones. You might know a thing or two about those things. And even FM radios in your own car using the same spectrum. So why hasn't your head exploded yet? Why hasn't Mars attacked? Why hasn't, all the things happened to you? It's because these devices that we're using, our cell phones, our Motorola radios, have a bit of technology in there, and they're called an antenna. What's that antenna all about, Chris?
Perhaps an easy way to explain this is just using acoustics as an example. When I speak, my voice excites the air molecules and it transmits over air molecules to your receiver, your ear, and your ear responds to those air molecules. RF works much the same way, where there's a transmitting antenna. So I'll use your radio example in the car. There's a transmitting antenna somewhere, probably way off on a hill somewhere in your city, that transmits radio waves. And then your car antenna is the receiving antenna that responds to that. These are called transducers. It's the same thing with microphones, and an antenna is a transducer. So it literally captures those radio frequencies and converts them to an electrical signal that your radio then can decode basically and play for you. And I think it's really important to point out, your microwave at home, when you cook your food, that operates at 2.4-ish gigahertz. The reason that is, there's a tube and a magnetron and even a waveguide that forces that 2.4 radio signal into your food. What it actually does is it excites the moisture molecules in the food. So it's not actually cooking the food. The moisture molecules get excited and bounce off each other, and they generate heat, which is what warms your food.
Would we use that for cell phones?
I would hope not, because we might hurt ourselves. Yeah,
that's right.
In fact, the reason why you can see your food getting cooked in your microwave is because there's a metal mesh on a window that looks to the microwave as a solid piece of metal, but light can pass through it because light wavelength is much shorter. The 2.4 gig will not pass through, but light wave will, and that's why you can see your food in there getting cooked. The point of all of this is those microwaves are, I think, either 900 watts or 1100 watts. Okay. Cell phones, these things are typically somewhere in the 1 watt or 5 watts.
Is it fair to say a microphone, wireless, a cell phone, an FM radio, a Motorola radio are all working on the same technology?
They certainly work in the RF spectrum. Yes.
Okay.
They may have
and yet
different
nobody's
technology.
head has exploded.
No. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Chris, listen, and this could go for days, because that's the beauty of this conversation. But to clear up any thoughts about what 5G is, 5G, Chris, out of your words, is what?
This is the next generation of technology that allows us to have faster communications wirelessly with our mobile devices.
And is it really any different than what we've been living in our entire lives?
We just get our cat videos faster.
That's awesome. And is it harmful with the devices that we use? Cell phones, Motorola radios, wireless microphones, FM radios?
The answer among many studies that I've seen and read is that no, there is no ill effect. If you overpower any RF signal, you could hurt yourself. But again, everything's governed by our FCC. You're never going to get one of these that operates at 1100 watts.
That'd be a hell of a phone call.
Yeah, it would melt, right? Yeah. This device would melt.
Yeah,
before.
right in your ears. Okay, well, and Lee, I really appreciate you being here too. I hope it was a great listen for you. I know you have many things to say on this subject, but this was, and the reason why Lee was here today is because he's an event professional who works with RF on the regular with his wireless microphones, and this is a very big event question. Chris, do you have any last thoughts, ideas, or anything you'd like to say about 5G or the education of RF?
No, I would say that I'd say I'm excited for it. I think it will continue to benefit our industry in many different ways. It's pushing the bounds of technology, and it's safe.
Excellent. And if by chance, and I'm not trying to sell you at all, if somebody wanted to educate themselves further on RF scale and all the things considered, how could one become the most educated about that scale? Maybe even through your devices.
Working for Shure, you could go to our website. There's lots of learning there, but there's lots of these types of things available online as well. Just make sure you're getting your information from a reputable company. In our industry, that would be companies like Sennheiser, Electrosonics, Audio-Technica. I just named all my competitors. But the good thing is that they all have similar, types of education, and everything is put together by the mathematicians, let's just say, the guys that know about the numbers and how things actually work.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate it. This was a quick conversation. I know that we could go into it for much, much longer, but it's great to understand a little bit about 5G, that it's not this harmful death laser, that it has been on this planet since you were born, and it's going in the air right now. As we have this conversation, people are fine. And the devices we use would be maybe the best conversation of if anything was going to be harmful. But again, why would we want to build something that's going to fry our planet immediately? All right. Lee from Rockfan, Criss from Shure Microphones, really appreciate you. My name is Goldie, and that's been another segment of 15 Minutes of Fame.